Hey, thank you everyone for joining us. We're excited to have you here. We're sorry that we're running just a tad bit late, but we were having some technical issues, so we think we have those worked out. This will be our second time around. Hopefully, it goes smoother than the first one.
Fingers
And
crossed.
yeah, again, Jody, thank you for joining us and
Sure.
taking the time. Um, I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation, and we'll get. First of all, before I really dive in, Dr. Jody and I had a great time at SIGGRAPH. We had a great time showing off her work for the panel, and we were glad she was able to record her panel and present it. We had a lot of amazing opportunity to talk about Dr. Jody and what Final Pixel and Final Pixel Academy is doing. I just wanted to start with that. Cloud Classrooms Without Borders is about exploring student at Final Pixel Academy, creating with Unreal Engine in the cloud to pretty much create amazing virtual production content. There was no render farms, and from our perspective, there was no borders. This session proves something powerful to me, and I think a lot of the people that were in the session felt the same. Is that world-class creative tools really should not depend on geography. So at CenterGrid, we provide next-generation virtual production workstations and creative cloud infrastructure. And I wanted to say thank you to Dr. Jody and Michael McKenna, the CEO of Final Pixel, its students and instructors for taking the time to be part of our SIGGRAPH session. I'm Eric Pinkel from CenterGrid, and as I said before, we create GPU clouds, and I've been working in CGI for around 25 years, mostly centered in the automotive area, but always enjoying what is coming out of the visual effects area. So I'm excited to be a part of this talk and a part of this community. Well, that pretty much sums it up about me. Dr. Jody, why don't you just go ahead and let everybody know a little bit about yourself and kind of what brought you to where you're at now?
Of course. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here. So my name is Dr. Jodi Nelson-Tabor, and I'm the head of Final Pixel Academy, which is the training arm of Final Pixel. And Final Pixel is a creative agency and FilmWorks. I'll talk a little bit more about what Final Pixel does and what the Academy does. But my background is a bit of a portfolio career, if you will. I'm American. I live in England now, and I lived in LA. I was a filmmaker. I went to California Institute of the Arts, did my master's there. That's how I ended up in LA. And then I decided I wanted to do a PhD in England and expand my horizons. And I came over here and did my PhD in alternative production methodologies. So I'm an academic, but I'm also a producer, writer. I have my own production company. And I was really interested in technology. I'm kind of a tech nerd underneath it all. And when virtual production started coming into the fold, I was really fascinated by the new technology, the possibilities for the future talent, future industry. It's accelerating, obviously, very, very fast. I've been in this space now for about 4 years when it sort of came on to the playing field, and everybody was interested. Mandalorian was came about. Virtual production became in the lexicon, even though virtual production has been uh, done for many many years in some shape or form. But now what we call virtual production is a proper workflow and a process that Final Pixel does end to end. And as I'm the head of the academy, we make sure that we train future talent. So that's my background.
Why don't you just tell everybody a little bit more about Final Pixel and kind of how it's organized?
Mhm. Yeah, so Final Pixel, as I said, is a creative filmworks, a creative agency and innovation filmworks company, and we do end-to-end virtual production. What that means is everything from the development, the previs, all the way to the delivery of the project. And that end-to-end workflow allows us to ensure that the entire process is a seamless process that has ingrained sustainability, has better cost measures, more opportunities to integrate core technologies into the creative process. We have our World Builders team, which is a team of artists who also create all of our environments and digital assets, as well as the academy, as I said, which is the training arm of the company.
Awesome, awesome. Well, before we get started, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming and joining us. I mean, I hope you're here because you've seen the potential of cloud virtual production and you really want to know how to make it real, like how to train your teams, how to scale your lab, how to open doors for students who might never be able to set foot into a physical studio. During this session, we want to hear from you and we'll provide you time to ask some questions. Over on the right-hand side, there's a chat bar. So, please use the chat to let us know your thoughts. First of all, we'll take a look at the SIGGRAPH panel case study overview, and then we will look at the final pixel reel. We'll basically have Dr. Jodi share her experiences with the SIGGRAPH lab and discuss her research paper. We'll have Dr. Jodi share her classroom creative brief for the students, and then Abra White, which is a student at Final Pixel who was part of the testing, she'll give a brief perspective on what she thought. Anna Sabalik will join us as well, and she is the instructor and the trainer, and she's going to be here to talk a little bit about how the creative brief evolved and how the creative process worked, and give us a little bit more insight into how Final Pixel Academy kind of drove forward on this SIGGRAPH presentation. At the end, don't miss this, but Dr. Jodi and Anna will share the Final Pixel Academy student work. You can see, what the final outcome and results are. And then at the end, we'll have a couple questions from the audience. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview about what the focus was. We felt that many schools lack GPU infrastructure needed to teach modern VFX and real-time workflows. We found that there was an issue there. A lot of the schools don't have high-end labs because they're often too costly for the schools and too costly for the students. As an idea, after we talked to Jodi, we wanted to try to bridge the gap, so we launched a pilot program to test VFX education entirely in the cloud. The SIGGRAPH Virtual Lab used VMs with NVIDIA GPUs and some shared storage across all the students. Each school integrated the lab into their advanced course and submitted a research paper as a result. Hopefully, again, this session shares the real data, feedback, and insights and how cloud tech is breaking barriers and expanding access to VFX and virtual production education. A little bit about the construction of the lab itself from an IT perspective. The lab is designed to be scalable. It can work with any number of students. It's optimized for secure education. As I said, the basic setup comes with 1 terabyte of cloud storage that the students could share their work. The students were connected to our data center through the Parsec Enterprise Relay. And at the core of the lab, we had 5 high-performance Windows 11 workstations with NVIDIA RTX 6000 GPUs, 48 gigabytes of VRAM, 64 core processors, and 128 gigs of RAM. Let's just take a look behind the scenes of the Final Pixel Academy, from its first stream capture session to the collaboration frameworks that now is working to shape virtual production worldwide. Anytime during the session, just let us know if you want to see the QR code, but you can just shoot it right now if you have your phone, and you can get direct access to Jodi's paper that she presented during the session at SIGGRAPH.
9 months to bring in a whole bunch of talent into the community of virtual production.
This is bleeding edge technology. You will have these people that will be skilled up, ready to plug in when new projects come on board. It's about changing hearts and minds, but starting a movement as well.
This is the future.
Your imagination is literally the only limitation.
I'm assistant producer, and what I'm kind of hoping is that this can help sort of future-proof myself in the industry. I'm just really excited about learning about new technologies and how we can implement them into TV, and perhaps even get a go at working at different live events or different sort of productions.
I'm particularly interested in virtual production as another tool for cinematography. It's brilliant that it's happening in Scotland. It's nice to feel part of the curve. There are such skill shortages, and it's amazing for the next generation of creatives who are coming through.
I'd like to open up more creative possibilities, develop a whole new skill set as an editor.
Working with industry is hugely important when it comes to training programs, because we need to make sure it's working for the industry. So working with Final Pixel, Night Sky and Blazing Griffin is the kind of perfect combination of the public sector working with the private sector, and hopefully this will demonstrate that Scotland is an ever-growing part of the screen sector.
Bringing the fellowship here to Scotland is a massively proud moment for me. The very first programme is here in my hometown of Glasgow, here in Kelvin Hall, for the very first launch event. And this is something that doesn't exist anywhere in the world right now. It's just amazing. We're pushing forward this fellowship. It's really special.
What's really great about this particular fellowship is it's 9 months. So it's beyond a taster or a minute or a weekend. We're looking at the opportunity for students to learn over a course of time with a group of professionals. So I think really what's brought me to Scotland, let's raise the boats of virtual production.
At Final Pixel, we've always been really clear that we have to teach with the experts, the people who are on set working in virtual production in such a kind of cutting-edge, fast-moving industry need to be the ones that are sharing the knowledge. Virtual production is still an emerging industry, and there's not many people that have the level of experience that is needed to properly train this in a way that skills up the future crew, it skills up the future generations in using it. This is so new, it's not really been taught at universities yet, it's not really taught at schools, there's very little out there, but we know there's demand for these jobs. We've developed a programme here where a group of 16 individuals learn deeply about how to do virtual production to a very high standard.
We're the teams that have the opportunity to talk about which environment we would like to use.
This virtual production fellowship is the starting point of essentially being able to help lift the career paths of people in Scotland and understand a path on how to move from conceptual, we're working on a volume, to being able to be employed in the industry, and hopefully for Night Sky to be able to employ those teams to be able to function in a professional set.
It's an opportunity to build a collaborative community of like-minded people who are very interested, very passionate about the work that they do, and just want to have access to be able to come and do the stuff here on set that we're seeing today. Whether it's running a volume, or it's creating a world in Unreal Engine, or it's being a DP working on an LED wall and playing with light and fixture, and production designers who get to work with real and digital set designs and different artifacts.
This is a very, very unique way of doing training, because it's not like the theoretical stuff. It's completely independent and it's by people who work in the industry for people who want to be in the industry. The idea is to get a good starting point so somebody can go on set and actually start talking about the right stuff.
There is a real convergence of technologies that underpins all of this. We do advertising, film, TV, immersive. We've been doing things, live events as well, and that's because there's a core convergence of the technologies and workflows and approaches that can then be applied to these different verticals. And that's what's really exciting, like where is this going to go? This is so early. There's so much headroom for innovation, there's so much headroom for more R&D. We're really just getting started.
All right, Dr. Jodi, please start us out. Thank you so much again for bringing the slides and walking through this with us.
Yeah, thank you. And before I start again, I just wanted to extend my thanks, our thanks, Final Pixel's thanks to our partners with Eric and Chris, and bringing this whole cloud infrastructure pilot, to make it possible for us to do this project. And of course, all of the staff at CenterGrid, we had technical support during the time as well, and every student who worked on this project to make it come to life. I want to talk just briefly again about a little bit more about the Academy. The Academy existed when really nobody else was teaching virtual production, and we look at we train early career entrants, we work with professional crew, we work with organizations, companies, educational organizations who are skilling up to virtual production, whether that means building a new LED volume or upskilling your key staff or your students, designing tailor-made curriculum for our training program. So what's really great about the Academy is that it's led and taught by professionals that are also working on set. Essentially, all of our team that's working on productions, every production is different. Obviously, virtual production is still quite novel, and we learn something new, and then we put that directly into our training. All of the students that work with us on our courses learn the latest, greatest updates. And as we know from Unreal, they're constantly updating to new versions. We have to constantly stay ahead of what's happening in the industry. And our our workflows and on-set experiences work across different projects like Lego, Warner Brothers Discovery, Disney ABC. Again, we're giving students and professionals the exact tools that they're going to see and use in the field. And that was what was really great about this pilot, is that we look at this cutting edge technology that, again, breaks down the barriers to have access to these tools. Because one of the biggest challenges that we run into is having access to studios and facilities to be able to get our hands on kit. And this was a great opportunity to test out these cloud-based systems. We break down those barriers, give more artists an opportunity to have hands-on learning with these tools and the experts in the space. Here's a little bit about what we did when we put these tools to the test. And there we go. Cool. When we put the lab together, we invited students that were across film, animation, games development, art direction, and technical backgrounds to experience real-time cloud-based production in a hands-on environment. And most had limited or no prior experience with remote cloud-based workflows, but everyone was quite eager to come and master, using Unreal Engine in this real-time techniques. And we had quite a diverse pool of students that all came from different geolocations. They were all different skill levels. Some of them had a lot of experience using Unreal Engine. Some had minimal. Some came from animation. Some came from broadcast. Some came from film. So it was a really interesting mixing pot. But we see this a lot in virtual production anyway, that you have a lot of skill sets that are coming from adjacent sectors, live events, broadcast, film, games, animation, VFX, that are all sort of coming into the fray for virtual production. So this was a great opportunity to bridge that divide in a space where students got a chance to explore how to use these tools in a professional environment. A lot of them had goals such as landing a virtual production supervisor, working as producers or previs artists, and some of them just wanted to push the creative boundaries in their own practice so that they could see what would be possible for building, say, portfolio material, things like that they could show their work from. These were just a couple of voices from our cohort. One participant who came from feature film and computer science told us that virtual production feels like a convergence of all my work, and I'm so excited about all of its potential applications. I want to use technology to create meaningful and magical experiences for people that are still grounded in reality. And another student who is a Blender generalist said, my goal is to expand expertise in real-time workflows, streamlining animation pipelines, and pushing storytelling in animated series and commercials. And the chance to experiment with Unreal Engine's tools is what drew him in. And then we have a feedback sort of testimonial recording from one of the students, Aber White, that if we want to go ahead and play that, I think she gives a really good overview of what those aims were and also what she learned from the program.
Hi, my name's Aber White, and I was a participant in this cloud-based VP project. What stood out to me in this project is how valuable this technology will be in training. In my trainings for virtual production, one thing that I hear a lot is how the greatest barrier for a lot of people is access to the technology that would allow them to fully participate. Many people, when they're just starting out, don't have machines that are powerful enough to do the trainings or participate fully in the trainings, and this cloud-based technology would totally change that and result in better trained professionals. The part that was most impressive about this to me was the lack of lag and the low latency in this technology. It felt like I was just using my own personal computer rather than a computer that was hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from me. And it made me confident to use this technology in my own professional practice. I think it could also open doors for productions to collaborate with creatives that they wouldn't have been able to collaborate with before, regardless of their location or their personal kit. And so to me, cloud-based technology for virtual production really means broadening access.
Great. And she essentially sums up what most of the cohort felt in this whole process. I think it really leveraged their capabilities, but also reduced the friction that sometimes comes from having to be in a specific location, a specific area. If we live outside of a metropolitan area, like outside of London or Manchester or Birmingham here, or in the States, New York, LA, Georgia, Atlanta, Louisiana even, it's quite difficult to get your hands on this kind of level of kit and access to be able to do these kinds of creative things. And what it really means, I think, for not only for creative professionals and those that are emerging into the sector, but also for talent pools and the industry. They've got a wider range of talent to choose from that doesn't have to just be located in their area. But also, what it also affords is for talent to live where they want to live, that they don't, particularly if they come from a small area, a small village community, that they don't have to pack up and move to a major metropolitan area to have a career. And I think that's the power of this technology. And so in this pilot, we developed a creative brief for them to engage in. So if you want to go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about this. So the creative brief was envisaged by Anna Soblich, who's our VAD supervisor, and she was also the lead trainer. She's going to be with us in just a moment and talk a little bit more through about what that entailed. But the creative brief, which was called Bear Steps, it was a collaborative global Unreal challenge that brings together 5 environmental artists from different parts of the world to create a short experimental art film in 5 to 7 days. And essentially, we were working remotely on this cloud-based server. Artists would contribute unique environments that interpreted the essential narrative through their own visual language. And so at the heart of the project was a pre-animated sequence featuring a stylized bear, a silent symbolic traveler moving through the 5 distinct worlds. That was the log line of the brief, but the bear was not very silent. He had some fun traveling through all these different environments. And what was really great is that each artist got to throw their signature spin on it. So the environment had to be conceptually rooted in the impact of global warming or ecological crisis specific to their region. So that transformed local realities into digital landscapes that speak a shared global urgency. And the objectives of the brief were to explore creative potential of using Unreal Engine in a highly compressed time frame, to demonstrate how individual artistic voices can converge through a shared asset and sequence, and also to participate in a remote cloud-based collaboration and storytelling through these environment discovery. So we'll, again, Anna will talk a little bit about, go back one slide. So we'll talk about what worked and what didn't work. There we go. So again, thanks to this cloud infrastructure, students had the opportunity to access high-end virtual production workstations via Parsec. Most describe the workstations as very fast, stable, and on par with professional studios. There was no need for expensive hardware at home, literally just capable internet connection. And as one student put, I could finally build a show reel that creates real job opportunities. So again, reducing those barriers by having access to the technology that could help them to realize these creative challenges. But there was also some slight challenges, of course, as with any technology, as we well know. A few people reported lags or freezing, but again, this was more due to the home network that might have been unreliable rather than the system itself. Login friction, so sometimes setting up multiple accounts, managing overly user interface. So for example, user interface. So like, for example, the Parsec logo was sometimes covering part of the Unreal Engine scene, making the workflow harder, but not impossible. And then one student, again, who talked about opportunities to create portfolio stuff, said that it filled a really crucial component of their workflow to be able to build projects. And imagine if you're outside of an area where there's not a lot of these types of jobs. How do you build a portfolio? The sort of chicken and egg kind of concept. How do I get the work if I can't have something to show for it? So this really provided an opportunity for students to be able to do that. So I think, again, it was really based upon the reliable network and what was available to them. You know, sometimes if there's a storm, I mean, I live in an area where we've got 5G towers, but they're over a hill, you know, and there's a tree line in front of it that completely is an obstacle for us, so we don't get any data. We're reliant on you know, sort of cabled network, not even fiber where we live, but I'm still able to do these kinds of projects. So again, it's not a huge problem if you just have basic internet access. So if we look at the next slide, there were some key barriers raised, but again, this is specific to the test pilot, doesn't really speak to the actual delivery or what was intended around the project. So given that it was a very quick test pilot, very fast turnaround, some of the accommodations that were requested couldn't be made. But it's important to recognize that even though these barriers exist within the context of a formally structured training program, that for better alignment, the cohort needs some different concerns, or sort of some different accessibility and some different routes in to make sure that their training is fully robust. So for example, procurement of reliable hardware and access to fast internet remains the limiting factor, especially out of structured learning environments. So if you don't go into a lab or a studio or a university that typically will have a T1 line or very strong infrastructure, you're sort of at the whim of your home networking you know, protocol. The other thing is transitioning from training to employment is tough anyway. So students say a clear pathway and portfolio opportunities are still lacking. Again, it's about the development of these portfolio assets, but it's also having expert guidance, expert trainers, and access to that expertise to help guide you through that challenge. Collaboration fell short, with one student saying the ability to connect and create together was missing. We would find better value on a shared drive, communication channels, or group tasks. And to speak to that, again, it was the nature of the very, very short test pilot. And obviously we had specific parameters that were put in place to do the pilot to reach the aims and the objectives of the brief. But put this into the context of a structured training program, all of those provisions would be met. There would be collaboration, there would be peer-to-peer networking. We did use Discord, so obviously the students had access to the trainers 24/7. But that's another sort of challenge with cloud-based training, is that you do have 24/7 access. If you're jumping on at late hours of the night, the trainer may be in a different time zone or may not be available to help you in that particular moment. And maybe AI and adaptive learning will come around and help solve that challenge in the future. But this is where we are. And then also scheduling can be rigid. So more flexible evening or weekend options were consistently requested, though I think, again, this was unique to our test pilot. We also had a global cohort of different time zones and a very short turnaround. But this is also something that would be considered moving into a properly formatted training. But there was also some really great highlights and impact that made it very, very useful to measure these key outcomes and the aims that we were striving for. One of the most important outcomes, of course, was confidence, right? So practical use of these professional tools helps students to feel more job ready and more employable. And I think that's really important as well. There's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of talent out there, but sometimes they just need that confidence boost to know that they are headed in the right direction. I mean, our world-class artists still run into challenges on set all the time. And I could probably tell you loads of stories about challenges with technology, and working with creatives in a real-time environment is very high pressure and very stress-oriented. But the more you have access to these tools, enables that confidence to grow, enables you to know the types of questions to ask. The other thing is accessibility, which this is really important to have a more diverse workforce, a diverse talent pool, and lowering the barriers to entry through this cloud-based approach significantly lowered those barriers to entry, because they had access to this high-end project brief, high-end technology to be able to do the project, and also the access to Anna and our team to be able to help go through the project. And then lastly was community. So again, even though the students wanted a lot more peer interaction, to be able to work together to share in real time, again, on a longer training program, we would have been able to integrate that more and also set the parameters within the context of the technical capabilities to be able to do that. So some suggestions on the next slide for the future labs would definitely our exit surveys that we did from the test pilot revealed some key findings if we were to deploy this at scale. And certainly if universities or other training partners want to find ways to scale their training beyond a local community or don't have the bandwidth to be able to invest in large amounts of kit, this is an alternative way to be able to deliver that high level training. There's also flexible scheduling, so sessions can be on evenings or weekends. It's not limited to space, real estate, access for that. Dedicated onboarding, so there's we could do clearer step-by-step technical documentation and more lead-up time to that. The onboarding process is such a crucial part to make sure that when you have talent that comes from lots of different industries, lots of different skill levels, that those onboarding documents are really helpful to make sure that it levels the playing field, that everybody starts from a similar place. And then built-in tools for team projects, so shared asset folders, real-time chat like Discord as we used, and also having group critiques. So again, the technology is there, the structure is there, and I think this test pilot proved that is fully capable of being able to deliver this kind of training, within that framework. I'll let Anna talk a little bit about the project. So Anna is our amazing artist. She's our VAD supervisor, had a really interesting background coming into virtual production. And again, she designed the brief and also led the lead training on this project. So Anna, I'll let you introduce yourself a bit and talk a little bit about the project.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Hello. Thank you, Jodi. Thank you, Eric, for having me here. I have had the opportunity to design a creative brief for this test project, for this cloud-based online learning project. The goal was to create something that artists can get fully briefed on, yet have enough time to explore on their own within 5 days of what we had for this project. So the creative brief started with creating a sequence on Unreal Engine sequence with a bear. We chose a bear as a metaphor of a character that can be used across all different environments and represent the main subject. The topic around the challenge was climate change, exploring it and seeing it through the eyes of our participants. Final Pixel Academy has published an online call, and then whoever wanted to join from wherever they wanted to join could apply for it. We have chosen 5 artists, 5 environment artists. We kind of made it clear that the challenge is aimed for environment artists and those who want to use Unreal Engine for production purposes. And they have all jumped on board, creating their own worlds, using the animation, the sequence of a bear in their environments, and at the end, they render out their result. Since the challenge was 5 days long, each artist received a simple Unreal Engine project with that pre-animated 30 seconds sequence, and they could put in assets from all kind of sources. It was completely on the artist to choose what they're going to use, how they're going to design it, how they're going to approach to the challenge. And we really wanted to give artists opportunity to use this technology to create something not only to fit into the topic of the challenge, but also for themselves to maybe use in a portfolio and stuff. At the end, we have edited that work of each artist into our short art film. And I think it was quite successful for our test project, for our first cloud-based learning project. And yes, the results were amazing. Artists were very interested in doing such a thing. So it was a real pleasure.
Love that one.
I think there's another shot of the bear walking on a big log, and flowers are blooming behind him as he's walking.
Nice.
Yeah, it's quite cool.
That's awesome. Really great. It's just great to imagine trying to get that done in 5 days. That's rough.
Exactly. Exactly. It was really challenging, I think, first to kind of get all set up and, being introduced to the technology they have used to the system, then to actually get to the brief, to get that sequence, to kind of, put it all in place technically, right? All had to work, and the result had to be delivered within 5 days. So that's like, for people who work, especially, it was really, really challenging. I think it's a good step forward for us to also embracing this project and kind of developing the concept even further. So maybe next time introducing a dialogue or something more complex and more intrigued storyline can be developed, so we really can assign those scenes to each artist, because now we see it's possible. It's definitely possible. It's definitely an opportunity.
Can I ask just a couple of questions, Eric, Ivana?
Yeah. No
we,
problem.
okay, cool. When you brought all of these artists together for the first time, how did when you were explaining the brief to them, and also the cloud-based technology they're going to be working in, what were sort of the barriers maybe that you ran into, or some challenges that you ran into?
I think it was obviously when you are creative, when you work in creative industry, you are an environment artist, you always wonder about this kind of emotional tone behind the project that you are trying to create. I think there were some questions in regards to, what am I as a creative here supposed to do? So we left that very open to them, right? Because we knew it's such a short period of time. Although the task was quite specific, I think that we really just wanted to see if it's possible to even make it. So that's why we didn't go too much into the in-depth statements of the concept, etc. I think next time we can definitely introduce that to create, so the collaboration feel more united, right? Like, so the participants, even though they are coming from all places from the world, they feel that they all can participate towards one directed goal. I think that's something for the next time for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And what I really loved about the creative brief as well is that it was a narrative piece, particularly around positioning it into a social issue, which I think we all are very passionate about. And I think that also resonated across the pieces of work that they did, with it addressing climate change and the bear sort of moving through the different spaces. And I think, again, that shows the uniqueness of a really quick, test, because we could have just asked them to build some trees or move some water or make some mountains or something like that, but it had a really creative brief behind it. And with that, I think, Eric, you have the World Builders reel. I don't know if
Oh
you
yeah,
can
I do
play
have
that.
it.
It
Yep.
would be great because then you'll get to see some of Anna's amazing work that she does. Amazing. Thank you.
Wow, that was just amazing. I am a total world
Uh,
builder, and I would just come there immediately and take that class. And just the music and everything for that, that's totally
Mm.
me. Yes, that was great. Thanks. I'm glad we were able to put that in, and
Yeah.
that's really great.
Well, it's very aspirational. I think it wraps up again sort of this sort of final reflection. Hands-on experience creates opportunity, and when you see a reel like that Anna and our other artists
Yeah.
at Final Pixel put together, that's the goal, right? That is the
Awesome.
aspirational goal, and to be able to leverage the technology to be able just to start working in that field is a game changer, I think, and really provides a lot of opportunities to people who wouldn't have them otherwise. So again, thank you from the whole Final Pixel team, obviously Centrogrid, our trainers, Anna, all of the students who participated and gave their time. It was a really important project, and we're really happy that we were part of it.
Awesome. I just want to say too that I mean, all these people are maybe sometimes thousands of miles away, sometimes close, sometimes far, all working together, in such a short amount of time. And the fact that, it worked. And even though there were challenges, that it just shows to me that as we move forward, technologies like these can really bring artists closer together, and they can provide opportunity for us to work with, anyone from around the world. I'm really excited about that. And I'm really happy that the SIGGRAPH panel and all the testing we did and the lab we put together kind of reaffirmed what I believe was true, is that, geography should not limit access to those creative tools. You should be able to access them from anywhere. And they also should be affordable.
Yeah.
We're working on that as well, and I just think that that's a key thing to get adoption and to and allow people to just try it for the first time and to see what that experience is like. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
So I did have this final reflection slide. I don't know if you already covered that.
Yeah, no, just basically that I think it opens doors, it builds confidence for creators from all backgrounds. And again, I think with a few tweaks that I think this is a really great model to expand on, and certainly it could be a standard for scaling cloud-based training for global talent pools, and really is that could be the linchpin for reducing those barriers to access to studios and having access to tech, particularly once students start learning Unreal and then they just get they get a real taste of it and they just want to do it as much as possible. And Anna, I think you had mentioned once before that starting in Unreal is not an easy task. You can go down the rabbit hole very easily and lots of different directions, So having structured training is just as important as having access to the tech, as well. And it's a collaboration between human beings.
Awesome. Agreed 100%. Just thank you everyone for coming together to help bring this together. Again, there's the QR code if you're interested in looking at Dr. Jodi's paper and getting the academic approach to kind of the way that we put the project together and the results that we got. Thank you everyone.